Hello, today I'm taking the chance to have a look at a sweet wine from southern France. This is La Frivole or La Frivole from Anne Gros. It's a 2018 vintage and this is half bottle I'm tasting this from. Now, La Frivole, a wine that's designed to be frivolous. This is made by Anne Gros and also Jean-Paul Tollo, who are a partnership, both of whom make extremely good wine in Burgundy. But they have a domain in Minervois and they're producing some fantastic red wines and also some interesting whites there, utilising the resources in fantastic old grapevines there. And I've done a number of videos about their reds. This, however, seems to be something slightly different. So here we're in a slightly different part of the Minervois. So this is Saint-Jean de Minervois. And here we're making a fortified, what they call a vin du naturel, so a wine where the sweetness is natural because a process called moutage has been used to add a 96% alcohol neutral spirit to the wine pretty soon after it starts fermenting to enable it to retain its natural sweetness. Saint-Jean de Minervois has to have a minimum of 125 grams per litre of sugar. That's something certainly you'd regard as a fully sweet dessert wine. And as a result, also alcohol levels are high. Now it's normal that Saint-Jean de Minervois has an alcohol level of about 15%. This is actually 15.5%. And the other regulation says that the moutage, the stopping of the fermentation, must happen before the 31st of December in the year of the vintage. Although you can get a derogation from the necessary officials if that's not possible. So the wine is based on the premium version of Muscat, the Muscat Blanc Petit Grain, or Muscat Frontignan, as it's sometimes known in this part of southern France. So we're not using Muscat of Alexandria here, which tends to be a sort of a less perfumed style of Muscat. So Saint-Jean de Minervois is at the southern end of the Massif Central, a range of relatively low mountains in south-central France, roughly midway between Montpellier and Toulouse. And so vineyards here at altitude, somewhere over 200 metres above sea level, and they look down on the rest of the Minervois appellation, where generally dry red wines are made. Although the climate here is mostly Mediterranean influenced, the fact that we're in an altitude here has a cooling influence and means that the season is longer, there's a longer hang time from the fruit, and it will develop more complex flavours. So in terms of quality of the Languedoc Muscats, this is probably the best. Now in some ways this was a little bit of a mystery to me because it doesn't appear on the websites either of Anne Gros for her Burgundy wines or the Tolot Gros website for their Minervois wines. And when you look very carefully at the label, there's a note describing the fruit to Podo Chaussas. And I did a little bit of digging, and there's a domain in Saint-Jean de Minervois called Domaine Montahuc, which is founded in 2005 as a joint venture between Michel Podu, a flying winemaker, and Julien Lopez, who owns an estate near Valencia that Podu had worked at. And the two of them got together, and as I say, in 2005 they established Domaine Montahuc in Saint-Jean de Minervois. So my presumption is that this is where the grapes for this wine were grown. Presumably Anne Gros and Jean-Paul Tollo had some input on the winemaking, but at the same time the winemaking for this is going to be relatively straightforward. You're looking to preserve all the lovely freshness of the fruit. In this region the fruit's probably being hand-picked, so that's going to ensure a degree of elegance. Fermentation probably going on in stainless steel with temperature control, but really quite a short fermentation, and then the addition of the spirit. So really quite a straightforward process. There's no aging in oak or anything like that. So the wine's virtue is simply its aroma. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? Firstly, it's a relatively pale to medium yellow colour. There almost appears to be a light bubble in there as well, but I don't think we'll see. I don't think there's enough of it to see that follow through onto the palate. Let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? Gosh, the aromas are strangely limey. There's a lovely sort of citric blossom note. There's a touch of honey, maybe a little bit of marzipan, although there's, as I say, there's no oak aging will have gone on in this, so that's a fruit derived aroma. So you know, there's a grapiness, but surrounded by this citric blossom, and as I say, a little bit of sort of almost marzipan-y sort of complexity there. So it's intense, it's open, and there is this really sort of lovely limey note about the whole thing, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. So let's have a taste. On the palate you get this combination of lovely liminess and the sweetness. There's almost like a sort of a lemon meringue pie sort of note going on. There is a sort of a grapey note on the mid palate, and the sweetness is really quite intense. It follows through beautifully. Even on the finish there is this sort of limey freshness, and that reflecting really quite good acidity that's keeping the finish lovely and fresh. I mean, talking about the balance, the freshness is helping the balance a lot. I mean, given the fact this has got 15.5% alcohol, it actually seems pretty well in balance. And I'm still getting that, what I was initially thinking of as liminess, I was talking about lemon meringue pie, but now almost sort of leaving the finish as a sort of a really quite enticing Turkish delight sort of note. Perfume to this wine is still to the fore. Given this is a 2018 wine and it's a light, simple muscat, you might have thought that this wine would have been in decline now. I mean, I think this is absolutely fine. I probably wouldn't think about keeping it for much longer, but actually the acidity is good, the alcohol obviously keeps it stable, and the lovely perfumes that run throughout it are really quite beguiling and enticing. I'm really quite enjoying this. The finish, as I say, is nice and clean, and it's lasting really well, and I'm really getting now those sort of lime and rose petal notes. I had a look at the Wine Search aggregated score for this, and this gets 90 out of 100. I think it's an aggregation of one score, so take what you will of that. I think it's a fair reflection. I might have been tempted to give it a 91, but given the fact that the wine probably isn't going to last a lot longer, I think that's a fairly reasonable score to finish with. I have to say, I'm impressed. I can still taste this wine. For what is a light, simple wine, it really is enduring really well in the mouth. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for the tasting. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you've liked what you've seen, do please press the button to say you have. If you feel like subscribing to our YouTube channel, that would be fantastic. We would really appreciate your support, and that way you can set yourself a notification and be alerted every time that we publish a new video. If you have friends you think might like to watch, do please forward it to them. If you have any comments, please leave those in the comments box below, and I'll leave a link to this wine on the Wine Searcher website in the notes below, so that you can find out its pricing, its availability in your market, and a little more detail about it in terms of reviews and price history and things like that. So thanks again for joining us, and do please come and join us again soon. Bye for now.